This episode is brought to you by the Cajun Spoon, the small box with the big flavor, featuring easy-to-prepare jambalaya, gumbo, shrimp and corn bisque, and more. Available nationwide at your local Walmart or order online at www.thecajunspoon.com. Long enough to cover the subject and short enough to keep it interesting. Welcome to Out of My League. I'm Nick Diaz. Time is running out. You have to get a job this many months after graduating, or else. You have to graduate in 4 or 5 years from college, or else. You have to make this much money by this amount of time, or else. This is the deadline, or else. But what happens if you take the first job you're offered out of school and you get stuck in a bad situation? What happens if you graduate in exactly 4 years and you didn't bother trying another major, another class in a different field of study, and you realize that you're unhappy? What happens if you ask for a raise before you've curried enough favor with your new boss? You're too busy trying to get it done fast instead of trying to get it done right. You know, someone once asked Lane Kiffin, if you could take everything you've learned from Nick Saban and boil it down to one thing, what would it be? And Lane Kiffin said, take my time. When I was younger, I was just going too fast as a head coach, and I learned to slow down and take my time. See, when we criticize Lane Kiffin from his past to today, what do we say he's improved? Maturity. And only mature and confident people and coaches like Nick Saban make these decisions very slowly. Ed Orgeron was not mature. Even when he was on his best behavior before 2019 and during 2019, it was always aggressive and pedal to the metal, do it my way. In 2017, I'm going to go hire Lane Kiffin. Well, he can't do that because now Lane Kiffin's going to be a head coach. All right, so we got to rush someone to the podium. Go find a Broyles Award finalist, Matt Canada, and rush him to the stage. Then you go and rush a hire from a Joe Brady recommendation. Oh, we got to get a Joe Brady guy, Joe Brady offense. First guy you interviewed, let's go hire him. Brian Kelly, well, when he first got the job at LSU, the number one criticism the past several weeks is what? He's taking too long to hire assistant coaches. Signing day is this week. Signing day is next week. Signing day is right now. Why don't you have coordinators? Where are all of your assistant coaches? Why is this taking so long? Well, why do you have to do it now? Well, because the recruits need to know. All right, it's funny because when you ask all of the recruits who did end up signing with LSU, they all say the same thing. Well, we were worried, but then when we all talked to Brian Kelly about his plan and the coaches and the coordinators, well, now we're at ease. He's got a plan. Yeah, but you lost all those other recruits that you lost. LSU lost recruits not because of the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator not being there. They lost because of NIL deals, and there was a new head coach that they had never met before, and everyone else had sort of gained ground on them. Walker Howard was worried about the offensive coordinator. Still is. He signed. Quincy Wiggins, he waited till the very last day to sign with LSU. We didn't know who he was going to sign with. He was worried about the defensive coordinator. He signed. So you're going to rush a new OC and DC just to get a few recruits that were probably leaning towards Alabama, Auburn, and Texas A&M anyway, even if you hired somebody before signing day. Just so you can get that standard timeline down pat to make everyone else feel better. Mature coaches don't rush until they find the right assistant coach. And Brian Kelly reportedly has landed on his two guys, Mike Denbrock, the tight ends coach and offensive coordinator for Cincinnati, and Matt House, the linebacker coach in the NFL for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, is Matt House, for example, we had heard Mike Denbrock's name being put out there for a while, but Matt House, he's new. Is he a good option to be the defensive coordinator? No idea. But I'll say this. The market is usually not wrong. If the D+ I got in economics class has taught me anything, the market corrects itself very quickly. Matt House was a defensive coordinator at Kentucky 3 years ago, and then last year, Tennessee Volunteers threw the kitchen sink at House, and he declined. There was a reason why no one was picking up the phone to hire Bo Pelini. The market is usually not wrong, and when it is, it corrects itself rather quickly. As far as the offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock is concerned, well, look, he's leading one of the top offenses in the country with one of the top quarterbacks in the country to an undefeated season into the college football playoff. And that kind of speaks for itself. But one thing that is of concern for many LSU fans is that Denbrock worked for Brian Kelly at Grand Valley State in the 90s and at Notre Dame most recently. So it begs the question, is LSU getting rid of a good old boy network only to bring in another good old boy network? Well, why is a good old boy network automatically a bad thing? Being in a good old boy network has nothing to do with job performance. LSU fans, you just have PTSD from Les Miles and Cam Cameron, and it's still bubbling up. There is a difference between hiring the good old boy network versus hiring people you know that can give you exactly what you want. I mean, hell, Bill Belichick, there's your Bill Belichick reference. Bill Belichick hires and rehires guys from his former coaching staff and his former players all the time. The trick is that he just knows how to pick the right ones that actually know how to, well, coach football. He gets the best of both worlds. For every Matt Canada, not part of the Good Old Boy Network, there was a Steve Ensminger, part of the Good Old Boy Network. For every Bo Pelini, good old boy, there was a Dave Aranda, not a good old boy. Correlation does not equal causation. But an even bigger concern that I've noticed from LSU fans, they seem to have is that the offensive style of Brian Kelly is still up in the air. And mostly what they hear from the dreaded words that leave the mouth of Notre Dame media members is pro-style offense. See, LSU fans, you just heard that. And you started convulsing on the ground with foam coming out of your mouth, and the rest of you started projectile vomiting from more PTSD of Les Miles running toss dive over and over and over again against a 9-man front. Please, little leaguers, allow me to ease your mind. There is a difference between style and scheme. What Les Miles ran was not technically a pro-style offense. It was a pro-style formation. And it was the same fucking formation over and over and over again. 2 tight ends, a fullback. But everyone is concerned about, well, he ran the ball every play. So what? I'll give you an example. In 2015, Alabama wins the national championship with Derrick Henry. And Lane Kiffin, that year, ran very much a pro-style offense with Nick Saban. And I remember one game, and I can't remember which game it was, but there was one sequence in the game that they played where Kiffin called a run play 15 times in a row. But the scheme was 15 different plays with 15 different formations. The problem with Les Miles is that the scheme was the problem. It was the same 2 formations and the same 2 plays over and over and over again. LSU fans have this outdated notion of what a pro-style offense actually means. The modern pro-style offense is what Brian Kelly runs. Go watch the Saints, the Rams, the Kansas City Chiefs, or better yet, just go watch Notre Dame the last 2 seasons and tell me if you have a problem with the scheme and creativity of that offense. Well, but the scheme's fine, but you can't win that way in college football with a pro-style offense. See Georgia. Hold on. Georgia's problem is not the scheme. Todd Monken, their offensive coordinator, is actually very, very well respected, very well coveted coach, and with his play calling is very well respected. Georgia's problem is that they have totally mismanaged their quarterback room. That's their problem. They don't have the guy to get it done under center. Technically, LSU ran a pro-style passing scheme in 2019. It was a pro-style passing game. They just ran it out of a spread formation, and they had great quarterback, a great wide receiver, running back, and no one could stop them. But technically, that was a pro-style offense. Brian Kelly is going to run some stuff under center more. He may use a fullback. He may not go up-tempo as much, which he used to do before he got to Notre Dame. His style of offense will be more physical, less tempo, more balance. They'll use tight ends. And yes, God forbid, they may go under center and have a fullback once in a while. Because in certain situations, that's actually the most effective thing you can do. Now, will any of these coordinators be the ones hired? Well, maybe. We'll see how this plays out. But all this waiting around past the early signing period with no OC or DC now makes sense. Because after January, before the next signing day starts and the dead period ends, both of these guys will be available to hire and publicly announce. Because college football will be done, and Denbrock will be able to leave Cincinnati and start recruiting for LSU immediately. And even if Matt House, who's in the NFL with the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are still in the playoffs, you can still announce him after the regular season as the next defensive coordinator at LSU and still let House coach into the playoffs. So you can tell recruits, they'll know who the next guy is before signing day. And you still get the best guy available for that position. That's patience working out for you. Thanks for listening to Out of My League. If you like what you heard, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, or follow me on Twitter and Facebook in the description link below.